This is the thing. Who you choose to hang around with, who you choose to have in your posse, is exactly who you become. Choose your posse wisely. I'm here to tell you that putting yourself first is not selfish, it's revolutionary. Welcome to the Ayurvedic Woman Podcast, empowering women to light their lives on fire through Ayurveda, yoga, spirituality, and fitness. I'm going to say this one last time. Stop apologizing. Women do this all the time. They apologize for everything. What are you feeling sorry about? Stop. If you do not put yourself first, nothing else happens. Stop putting everybody in front of you and put yourself first so that those people that you need to care for and take care of can be cared for because you have put yourself as the priority.
Jai Bhagwan, Women Warriors, and welcome to the Ayurvedic Woman Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Satyavani, and my fabulous co-host,
Prajna Madhavi.
And today we have an incredibly special guest that I'm super excited about, somebody who is very important to me in my life, Mr. August Ritter.
How are we doing today?
So happy that you're here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And August Ritter is the chief instructor of the Krav Maga experts here in Boise, Idaho.
Yes, ma'am.
So today we're going to talk a little bit about women and self-defense and all of this kind of stuff. So thank you so much for coming.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Oh
Happy
my God.
to be here.
So great for you to be here. So before we even get started with questions, I have a pre-question before the first question.
Okay.
So you got to tell us how you got into this.
Oh, boy.
And why?
Just the business aspect of it?
No,
or
just
martial arts?
Martial arts and give us a little bit about your background.
Sure.
And
I mean, that started when I was a kid, though, so that goes way back.
Okay.
It's a long story. Yeah. I won't make it terribly long, though.
No, make it as long as you need it to be.
11 or so, but in grade school, it was I was bullied a lot,
That's very hard for me to believe right now.
Yeah. Now it's very different now, and it did change, obviously. But no, back then it was common to get beat up at our school or in that area. I wasn't the only one, of course.
And you grew up in Northern California.
Yeah, Northern California, and at that point, there was one day where I went up to the school. It was my last day of grade school because I ended up homeschooling. But we pulled up, and there was 4 or 5 guys, waiting for me to get out of the car. And at that point, I just looked at the situation, looked at my mother, and I'm like, I'm not going to school anymore. I'm done. And so at that point, started doing homeschooling, and then Dad put me in martial arts.
Wow.
Age of 11. And right away, I fell in love with it, and I started doing Jeet Kune Do and Wing Chun at first.
Bruce Lee style.
Yeah, Bruce Lee style. I mean, originally it was the restricted kung fu stuff, and I liked it, but I already at that age saw that there was kind of barriers and boundaries, and it was old. I mean, and I respect Wing Chun very much. It's got a lot of good aspects to it, but it was limited, and it wasn't very practical.
Okay.
And then I found Jeet Kune Do, which was more like Krav, honestly, an open system. And non-traditional, and essentially the way that it was taught was, okay, so we've got an individual here and here, and each person is going to learn, differently. They're going to grow independently. So maybe somebody has their strengths, like, they're good at side kicks. Like that was mine in the beginning, right? Maybe somebody's good at wrestling. So whatever it was, they would focus on that strength and grow from there. And so that, honestly, that went into the rest of my life too.
Wow.
Right. So I look at life in general like that. We're all very different. That's why I don't do any kind of I don't do anything that has a dogmatic kind of form.
Okay.
Right, if you will.
Yeah.
So from there, let's see. So it was grade school, and then high school is about when things started changing.
Okay.
So I was no longer bullied. Let's put it that way.
Were you the bully?
No, I was never the bully. I was never the bully per se. And then from there, I continued my training. I did full contact fighting, early on, and then went into security age 21 as a bouncer. In that period of my life, I was a bit of a drinker. So, they hired me at the bar because I was there all the time.
You're here anyway.
Might as well do some things.
New Year's Eve was my first night on the job.
New Year's Eve.
Yep, New Year's Eve. And we just had
I remember you telling me
people.
that.
Yeah. Didn't go well. I was terrible at it. Honestly, in the beginning, I was terrible at it. Yeah.
Well, you don't know what you don't know.
No. Yeah. So that started my career in security, essentially. And I did, all sorts of different types of bar and club security, mainly. Over the years, became a defensive tactics instructor for a department I worked for. Grew that from there, started teaching police and government agencies, security of various types.
Wow.
And it wasn't until about 7 or 8 years ago that I started training people outside of that kind of realm,
Got it.
Civilians, if you want, right? And so that's where I am now.
Wow.
Yeah, and the backstory, there is a backstory to it. When I was
give us the backstory.
Younger, 5 years old, right? My father was attacked, and he was attacked by 5 guys.
Oh my God.
Taken out outside the back of a bar, curb stomped, just like you'd see in maybe a movie or something. And that changed him for the rest of his life. I knew all about it at a very young age. So when I was 11 or 12, I knew about it.
Wow.
And so that, in part, that inspired me to train, right? So it wasn't just because I was getting bullied, but hearing that story, even at that young age, I didn't want that to happen to me. And of course, you see that importance in everything I do now.
Wow.
Right? So.
Well, folks, there's a snippet there about Mr. August
There's a lot of
Ritter.
gaps there, though, too, right?
Yeah, of course, and I have no doubt that we'll get to some of that today. But I just wanted to have everybody have an idea of like where you came from and all of that before we dove into this. But let's pull back a little bit and do a little wellness check-in today. See how the week is going for all of us, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all of the good stuff. So, Praj, how was your week?
My week was hit and miss.
Yeah.
I had a lot of ups and downs at moments, but overall, it was really good. I had, as I mentioned in the 108, because we always try to do a little video every single day in the 108, and we had this discussion last night during our AWP online that they really appreciate it, but at the same time, it also helps me like get out my thoughts and helps me process what I've been doing for that day. And
the daily video.
Yes. So yeah, there were some downs this week about being very frustrated of, just where I am in teaching, that I can have, one really great class and then have a class that I'm just like, what am I doing?
August wouldn't know anything about that.
Are these kids even learning anything? And they're apathetic or, whatever reason. And yet, as I mentioned in the video, it's again, you just keep showing up and setting that example of like, I show up every day regardless of, what I'm going through and just trying to set that example. And today was start out a little like, come on, you just stop being apathetic. But then by the end of the day, it ended up being a pretty good day where, a lot of kids can be really crazy. And
it's Friday. It's before Thanksgiving.
Friday before break. And the fact that I could actually keep them engaged in what I was teaching them today was a win for sure.
And would you like to share what you were teaching about today?
I was teaching about China. Communist China. And,
there's not a lot of teachers that talk about that right now.
No.
That's cool.
Talking about communists, I get to link Confucianism with communist China, with the current test of the Gaokao and how strict that is. And then I like to sprinkle in the social credit score and the video cameras and the TikTok.
Good for you.
And
Right on.
Right?
like
That's
the
cool.
kids were like they were asking really good questions.
Yeah.
And so it was really fun to like dive down that rabbit hole with some of them.
They
talking
probably
about
don't hear that from anybody else, I would
No.
imagine.
No.
Yeah.
Were a lot of them like deer in headlights? Like, oh my God, this actually
I always kind of
exists.
preface it like, okay, how many know that TikTok's owned by China? And I have a few hands, come up, and I'm like, how many know that their TikTok is different from your TikTok? And some of them have no clue, and they show them the video, and they're like,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
and
It's incredible to me.
they're getting the spinach version of TikTok. We're getting the opium version of TikTok. Like that's
Yeah.
and I also went back to the opium wars and talked about that and tried to make the connection. And some kids got it, and I'm like, that's a win.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
a win
that
for
is.
me today.
Yeah.
And
So-
at the end of the day, in 10 years from now, you have no idea the impact it is
Yeah.
that will have. They'll remember like, oh, Ms. Mitlider, she knew.
Yeah.
So
Way back then, she
Right,
knew.
yeah,
They'll
she
look
knew.
back. I think so.
No
we'll
idea.
see. But
You have to think
I-
long term, too, as a teacher.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Way
it's
down the road.
It's way
Yeah.
down the road.
22 years of this so far. It's long term.
Yeah.
I got some sun today. I mean, that made my 4th hour so much more enjoyable.
Yeah.
Getting
The
some
weather's been
vitamin D.
amazing.
Yeah, the weather's
I
been
will
great.
take this spring-like weather all the way to Christmas, baby.
Oh,
all
yeah.
the way.
Yep.
So we'll see.
So yeah, that's
Awesome.
me. How about you?
Not bad.
It's been a rough week. My father-in-law passed away, so Ray, I hope you are flying high. So just a lot of stuff with wanting to be close to the family, being supportive of my husband, those kinds of things. And so not necessarily super out of routine, but as August knows, and I'm going to put my hand up in front of my face, I did not make it to Krav this week. But
story.
but you understood.
I did, yeah.
And so but I was able to get to the gym and work out because August is also my personal trainer. So I have to be accountable because when I go back on Monday, it's going to be a very painful experience. So, but
After every break, it always is.
it is.
Yeah.
It really
Yep.
is. But it was necessary, and I felt good about being there. And so we, all of the necessary things are being done and unfolding. And now, like, I don't have to be there, as intensely now. Now it's really just left up to the family to deal with all of the. All of the quote legal things that happen after a person passes away. So,
Yeah.
But on the physical, energetic side, I actually feel really, really good. I was slogging through it last month, like just energy dip, and actually we talked about tribulus,
Right,
and
that's right, yeah.
which is gokshura. It's an herb in Ayurveda. Tribulus and gokshura are the same thing. When he said it to me, I'm like, God, I know that's an Ayurvedic herb. There's a Sanskrit name for that.
I didn't know
But
that.
yeah,
That's
so
cool.
I
That's
was
great.
like, all right. And so I picked up some of that, and boy, did that help.
Yeah.
Oh my God, overnight. It was
How long
just,
you been taking it now?
now it's like 2 weeks.
Okay.
And I
Big
was
difference.
like, a big difference in energy.
That's great.
I was like, this is awesome. So I'm like, okay, there we go. We'll add the 35th supplement to my daily routine. But, this is what happens when you're almost 50 years old. So
Well, and
that's
when
good.
you can't get it from your food,
Right. Thank you.
you
Well,
gotta
yeah.
Yeah.
get it from somewhere.
It gets harder all the time. Yeah, you pull out your tote probably, right?
Oh, it's
Yeah.
I have them. I have a medicine cabinet in my bathroom, and there's 2 rows, and like every morning it's just boom, 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 and that's not including the creatine powder
Yeah.
and and the BCAA powder
Yeah.
and all of that stuff. So, but overall, trucking along. I wouldn't say it was like the best week, but a good one.
Yeah.
How about you, August?
Not bad, actually.
Okay.
Made a pretty big purchase recently. I got a camper, which is kind of nice.
Nice.
Setting that up right now.
Preparing.
Yeah, we'll just say I'm preparing for a really long camping trip. That's kind of how we're looking at it. So, we're getting all the stuff you need, right, of course, and packing it up, getting it ready, got my vehicle ready. So, if we're going to go out there for 2 weeks, a couple of days, 6 months, year, whatever, we'll be ready. So that's kind of where
Mad
our
Max
mindset's
style.
been. Yeah. But other than that, we're doing some breath work tonight. We're going to a class, so I think you'd like that.
Nice.
Mel, my wife, is doing a lot more of that kind of stuff.
Wonderful.
Recently. She did some Reiki, I think it was last week. And she's really enjoying it. So everybody's happier. Right.
Nice.
Yep.
But overall, really.
But everybody in the house is happy. It's very happy.
Yeah, for sure.
That's great. Wait, how are you feeling?
I'm good. Good. I recently had, as you know, a switch in my medications.
Yep.
So with that, it's kind of an up and down process. So I'm a little bit on the downstream, but that's kind of how it goes. Hormones, right?
Yeah.
Are you okay giving a little bit of background?
Yeah, I've got Hashimoto's disease.
Yeah.
Had it for, well, I don't know how long. Diagnosed probably 25 years ago.
Okay.
So
which is very rare in men.
It's very rare in men. Yeah. Yeah. So the energy is a factor for sure. That's the first thing that goes kind of up and down.
Yep.
Depression, anxiety, all the normal stuff. Just a lot more of it, and it's a definite, again, up and down process. And having it, the best thing is when it, of course, levels out.
Yeah.
And you feel quote unquote normal, whatever that is. I'm always trying to be, of course, I want to excel. Health wise. I want to be vibrant and energetic, way over the top. That's where I like to be. So as close to that as possible. And, after 20-something years, you develop patience with it, though, for sure. You expect the ups and downs. And just like, when you have things in life happening all around you, the chaos, you find that center. So no matter what happens, you're okay. So I'm always okay. Yeah.
It's interesting. Prajna knows, I treat a lot of folks that have autoimmune. And so I'm, very familiar with the ups and downs. And Praj, you were on the border there for a while. So it's keeping a regular routine is super important.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so, when you get off of it, you feel it.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So awesome. Well, good. And you're back. Back's good?
Yeah, back's good.
Okay. You have found the secret sauce, though, apparently, for all of those who have back injuries out there.
Yeah. So background on that is I've got 2 herniated discs, so they say, bulging.
It's like welcome to the club, right?
Apparently, I snapped a couple tendons somewhere in my back. I don't know how that even works.
Okay.
Those are fine. But really, I was stretching. Doing chiropractics, massage therapy, and I'm still doing a lot of that stuff now, but never lasting relief.
Yeah, just temporary stuff.
Yeah, temporary stuff. And I deal with inflammation. That's part of
Hashis.
It's a big part of it, and that can be really high or not bad at all. With this, it turns out though that all the stretching that I was doing for so long was making it worse.
It's actually aggravating it.
Yeah. So it's that sciatica, right? That nerve that goes down.
Yes, I know it.
And there's a muscle that goes across it, and that's the muscle that I've been stretching.
The piriformis.
That's the one.
Yep.
And apparently when it gets loose, that's when it sits on the nerve.
Yeah.
All this time I thought I was doing the right thing. So I've focused a lot more on strength training of the glutes. Yep. One of my least favorite muscles to work. Never really did it.
Amen.
Mine too.
Yeah.
So it's kind of new for me.
Yeah.
But it's working great.
That's great.
Yeah. So even right afterwards, if I've got back pain in the lower back, if I do that exercise, one of the leg lifts, right? Afterwards, I feel much better.
That's awesome.
I had the same thing with my knee.
Yeah.
I mean,
yep.
Again, trying to get back into Krav, but I want to make sure that knee is healthy, and that's been.
It's hard.
In the physical therapy, they're like, you
don't have any glutes.
You don't have any outer glutes. I was like, huh. Yeah. Okay. They're like, do this exercise. I'm like, I can't.
I know.
Yeah.
I don't know what muscle that is.
Right.
I can't feel it.
I don't move my legs that way either.
That's the problem.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm just like, okay.
Yep.
All right. So now that I have those exercises, my knee feels quite a bit better.
I'm all about the glute juice right now. I said that last week when we did PT. I'm like, I need more juice in my glutes. And he gave me the look of, like you're going to have to do the bar hump. I'm like, I'm like, this is a private matter.
Yes, it is.
It works, though.
I know.
really
And
does.
I avoided it for a very long time.
Yeah.
You go to the gym and you know what it looks like.
Oh, of course. We make fun of it all the time.
All the time.
All the time.
So, but it does work.
It does work, and we just do it in private.
Yes.
When nobody's watching.
Yeah, I do it in a corner. I don't do it like on the bar in front of the mirror for all to see.
With your phone on recording.
Exactly. And then
There's a difference.
going into the locker room and taking a picture afterwards. Like,
I'm pretty sure there's girls that go in there and that's the only exercise.
That's all they do. Oh, no. We've seen it chapter and verse.
I've seen them over there just doing that.
Yep.
For an extended period of time.
Like 40
and
minutes.
Nothing else.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they get up and they leave.
It oftentimes obviously works for him. I will say that.
You're very kind.
Yeah.
We're just
More
like,
power to you.
Prajna and I give him the stare of like, get off the Smith machine.
Yeah.
We've got
Let
shit
us
we
do
have
some
to
real
do.
Stuff, right? Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah. Like a bench press. Come on.
All right. So let's dive into this. This is exciting. So you want to start with the first question here?
Oh,
for
the questions.
August?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, we actually do. We have questions for you, believe it or not.
Cool.
All right. So, first question: what is Krav Maga for our listeners that are not familiar with it?
Okay. Krav Maga. It's an Israeli defensive tactics system.
Okay.
So it's not a martial art. Some people think it is. I mean, that's what most things are. It was constructed from various forms all over the world, implemented 1948 by a guy named Emi into the Israeli Defense Forces. And again, it's a system, so it was in the beginning pretty bare bones.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that was tested and tried. So in the beginning, it was something meant to and intended to teach in, say, like 2 weeks. You've got the military here, right? And we need them to go out ASAP. So let's develop something very, very minimal and have them learn it. Because honestly, like most people that come in, even in the Israeli military, don't have a serious background in martial arts.
Right.
Keep in mind there too, everybody goes into the military.
Yeah.
Right.
So they have to have something that's very cut and dry, simple, and when they get out of it, they just want their survivability to increase. Mm-hmm. And it has to be as efficient as possible. Mm-hmm. Which therein lies the best part about Krav Maga, even now today, is its efficiency. And over anything else, we focus so much on how do we get from A to B, as quickly as possible. Mm-hmm. And that means, that it's not about strength, right? It's about speed. It's about being relaxed, mindset-wise too, even amongst chaos. And that's a hard part, for sure. But back to, again, what just Krav Maga is, it's a self-defense system, and it grows all the time. Mm-hmm. It's an open system, right? Part of the reason I fell in love with it, again, because Jeet Kune Do was an open system,
mm-hmm. right?
Which means there's no barriers again, right? So it can take on new things. Krav Maga, same way. They do it a little differently, of course. So if out in the field somebody gets stabbed, mm-hmm. right? Well, they're going to bring it back and they're going to tweak it and work on it and train on it and see how they can improve it.
Okay.
That's really what it comes down to, mm-hmm. And that's kind of how it's evolved over the years, at least with the Israelis. Mm-hmm. In America, much different thing. The American Krav Maga version turned into the fitness-based kind of model,
right.
which is where the money's at too.
Right.
Did
it also turn into MMA?
No,
okay.
It's never really turned into MMA.
Okay.
There's been guys with Krav Maga backgrounds that have been in, say, like UFC,
okay.
for instance. But again, even though they have a background in Krav Maga, they also have a background in MMA.
Yeah.
So they're not really doing Krav Maga in UFC.
Got it.
Maybe certain components, but mm-hmm. again, if they did that, it just wouldn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because
gotcha.
it's a totally different thing.
Yep.
But you can't take somebody from the UFC and put them in a street scenario and have them perform as well as somebody that's got extensive training in Krav Maga.
Okay.
Right? Because they're trained to take on one person at a time.
Yep.
In a cage, mm-hmm. with rules, mm-hmm. with time limits.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a huge debate out there too, right? Because a lot of people think that, well, Krav Maga is fake, right? It's
very much not.
No, it's right, of course. It's a
very
big
much
thing out
not.
there. Yeah. But they say that because, again, like the go-to answer for the Krav Maga people is, well, we can't be in a fight in the UFC or anything like that because, there's rules. So we're just trained to kick them in the groin and gouge their eyes out and, kill the person, right? Which is true to a certain extent, but everybody's missing.
Well, in a violent situation, yes, that is the
yeah, for sure. But everybody's missing the entire picture, right? Which is everybody needs to stop thinking about, okay, is it Krav Maga? Will it work in MMA, or is Taekwondo better than karate, or is Kung Fu better than this?
Got it.
Right? It's this ongoing political debate almost that just needs to end, because really what it comes down to is the instructor,
yes,
their experience, right, the way they teach, and the student.
Yes.
Nothing else. Doesn't matter, right? So Krav Maga can definitely be effective in an MMA ring if the instructor knows how to tweak it, change it, augment it, adapt it to that situation. And then if you have a good trainer, a good instructor, they can take somebody from the MMA and change them and augment them so that they can adapt to a street situation.
Nice.
But they're not the same thing. You can't compare them. Totally different.
Gotcha. Now, you mentioned how your background, you went from Jeet Kune Do and then you found Krav. Is there a relationship between, in your opinion, between Jeet Kune Do and Krav? Do you think Krav was the next step beyond Jeet Kune Do? And for the record, folks, and correct me if I'm wrong, August, for those that are listening, Jeet Kune Do was the system that Bruce Lee designed.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
which that one's a hard one to describe because again, it's not a martial arts.
Right.
It's hardly even a system.
Right. It's almost like a spiritual path in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's about individual growth, spiritual growth for sure, right? As far as the change in how the system worked, it came down to something very simple, which was Wing Chun. You train to go down the center, straight up the middle, in everything you do.
Okay.
Right. Whereas a boxer or somebody from a different type of martial art, they work the outside. Right.
Yes.
So he saw there was a limitation because when Wing Chun went up against somebody that was like a boxer, for instance, and they knew how to work the outside, the Wing Chun didn't work. So he just implemented how to work the inside, down that center, and how to work the outside. And then that was Jeet Kune Do.
Gotcha.
Really. Yeah, I mean, of course, it expanded from there. But yeah. Well,
is there a relationship in your mind between Jeet Kune Do and Krav?
I'm just going to ask you to remind me the original question.
No, it's okay. Yeah, no, it's okay. We went down the path a little bit.
Date-wise, I mean, Krav Maga was introduced in 48, right? And when did Bruce Lee come up with Jeet Kune Do? 70s. Right?
Yeah.
So the relationship, I don't think that he had any knowledge of Krav Maga, obviously, taking place, right? Okay. So there's no real relationship, I don't think. I would say there's definitely more of a relationship with Jeet Kune Do and, say, MMA, though. Freestyle or mixed martial arts.
Okay.
They often refer to Bruce Lee as the godfather of MMA, which, sure. But again, he was about street fighting.
Yes.
Right. He wasn't about rules and competition. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So, we talked about your background.
I'm going to get some water here.
No. Drink up, yo.
I found it a fascinating part about just, and from a historical context, just thinking about, 1948 is, the year Israel became a country. And so just immediately that
Look at you, the history teacher here. It, girl.
We have to immediately learn how to defend ourselves because we know we are surrounded by countries that do not want to be
changes things,
do not want us to exist, and so it's
you have a completely different reason to fight.
And how you said how they made it so simple so that people could learn it, very easily. That was it can kind of see that origin as to why they would have created something like that.
Right. And that's why there's so much passion. Because
it's a good word.
They're doing something significant, which is they're protecting the people they love.
Yes.
And when you go up against somebody, not to get into this too much, but
No,
when you
go
go
for
into a populace that is about hating somebody, right? And that opposition, so they hate, and then their enemy, so in this case, the Israelis, right? They love, essentially, and they're protecting what they love.
Yeah.
That's way stronger than any hatred that they can develop.
Love always trumps hate.
Yeah. So in part, that's why they'll always be superior out there on the battlefield.
Yeah.
They have something to protect.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's huge.
Is everybody and I apologize for the ignorance on this, and everybody who's in the Israeli armed forces learns Krav?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like standard operating procedure. Okay.
Yeah, much like here.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you explained your background and how and why you got it, but like, what led you to teaching? What led you to teaching Krav? Because it's one thing, like, we even talk about this in the yoga world. It's one thing to be a yoga practitioner, but to want to step into becoming a yoga teacher is a completely different realm. And I would
Right.
imagine it's the same thing, from going from martial arts, learning this self-defense system, and then wanting to become a teacher. Like, what motivated that? Why did you want to become a teacher?
I think really because leadership has always resonated with me. So it started with that, right? So even at a younger age, it sounds silly, but, I'd be walking in front and there's people behind me, So it started at a pretty young age, where I just wanted to take charge and lead and improve, make things better. So that naturally progressed into teaching, I think. Now, I mean, as far as how it really started was somebody saw talent in me and wanted me to become an instructor, right? So at that time, it was our captain, and I was just I didn't even have any rank at that point. I was pretty new. I think I'd been working for that particular company for maybe a couple of years, and right off the bat, he wanted me to take over, and become the training manager for that department.
Nice.
Never happened because of politics.
Of course.
He tells me, "Hey, you're the one, man. I think, are you willing to do it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on." Yeah. But in the end, it wasn't his decision.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And that happened several times. Different story entirely.
Yes.
But I finally got the position years later. Yeah. And that was big for me because you have a lot of comrades, if you will. Like I worked private security. Okay. And
this was in Washington.
And the department was huge. We had at least 30 to 100 officers, depending. A lot were contracts, but the in-house private, 30, 40 officers strong. And you work closely with them, and we experienced heavy stuff.
Absolutely.
We really did. And when I say heavy stuff, I'm talking about not just, people fighting, but shootings, suicides, rapes, the accidents of various types. A lot of trauma.
Yeah.
A lot of trauma. So you develop a relationship with your comrades that you're really close. So essentially, that was I think a big part of it, because officer safety for me was number one, the preservation of life
your team.
of my team.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was a big motivator. I was like, okay, they're training these guys, but they're not doing a great job. They're really, the way they were doing it was, let's just check a mark and pass them through.
Right.
And they were all old school. We had former police officers.
I was going to say, it sounds kind of like current police officers.
Yeah, and they were
Sounds
running
like
the show, so
Right.
they wanted it just to, be on paper and call it good. And I didn't. I wanted my guys to be safe. I wanted them to be well trained, and if something should happen, I want some backup too. So I took that on, and I put my heart and soul into it. For years.
Yeah.
I would train these guys for 8 to 10 hours a day, and it was very
And
physical.
you were a Krav practitioner at that time.
Not at first.
Okay.
So that wasn't until 2007.
Okay.
So it was definitely a time period where, I'll tell you how that came about though. But I took on that role, and I just worked my ass off. And eventually they gave me the title.
Got it.
No pay, of course. But I got my rank, so I went up in rank, so I got paid more. But for all that work, I never got paid any additional, right? So that's a different story.
The first step in becoming a teacher, you don't do it for the money.
I was, but there's a burnout point, of course.
1,000%.
I'm like, at some point, I'm putting so much into it, and nobody's really watching or paying attention. So why am I doing it?
Why am I doing it?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You wouldn't know anything about that, huh, Praj?
Amazing. All the parallels.
Yeah.
There's I'm sure there's a lot of them.
Jobs in life.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very cool. Okay, so the next...
I did answer the question, right?
Yes, you did.
Okay, just making sure.
Yes, you did. You got it.
Okay.
You got it.
So with Krav Maga, obviously you have all of the physical skills that you're trying to perfect.
Yep.
What are some of the other non-tangible or other skills that you think people learn through Krav Maga and practicing?
Mental training, mental strength is probably the first and foremost. That's kind of something that just comes with it too.
Mental toughness.
Yeah, naturally, through the training. That's probably the biggest one. I've done many classes where we focus on how to develop mental strength, but a lot of it is done too just by doing the training, doing the drills. If I put you through an extensive drill and we talked about this one, say you're striking somebody with a pad and you get taken down to the ground, you're held on the ground and you're smothered and suffocated and this sounds really bad, I know. It's not as bad as it sounds.
It's actually
quite terrible.
It's actually horrible. Like, have been in this scenario several times, as a matter of fact.
And then you gotta fight to get up.
Good motivation.
And get back to that person with the pad. That kind of stuff will mentally make you much stronger very fast.
Very quickly.
Yeah, very fast. So I think that's the biggest one. Lifestyle. Yeah. Because when you have a discipline,
yes,
and Krav Maga is definitely a dedicated discipline. I've done a lot of different things in my day. I still do a lot of training. I do weight training, but nothing equates to what Krav Maga provides discipline-wise that I have ever done. And again, I've done quite a few things, especially when it comes to testing as well. Testing is monumental.
Oh God, yes.
In Krav Maga.
Yes.
For some people, it's their time to leave.
It's terrifying and yet wonderful at the same time. So,
some people like us, though, we're like, that was the hardest thing I've done, and therefore the best thing I've done. So I'm going to keep doing it.
And let's do it again.
Exactly. Yeah. And so guess what? Now, because we're dedicated to this extreme discipline, now everything in life becomes easier.
Yes.
Really.
Very much so. In that vein, like with what disciplines have you seen grow not only in yourself but in your students as a result of that? Like, yes, mental toughness, etc. But like, do you see folks who are just like, I got to dial my diet in better. I've got
simple things like that.
Yeah, like I got to hang out with a better crowd. I have to, those kinds of things.
Usually it comes by way of questions.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So like they'll be doing the training for a while. People are generally quiet in the beginning.
Yeah.
As they build confidence, they start to open up a bit more, and
even this one.
Yeah, maybe. But she's not very dedicated, honestly.
I'm a horrible student. I have commitment problems. That's the running joke now. I have commitment problems, and I'm not dedicated at all.
True. Yeah.
Year 4, baby. Year 4.
So questions come up, and then the questions, of course, are going to be about, well, how do I improve my speed and my strength and my stamina. Right. Well, then we can talk about diet. Right. We can talk about hydration. We can talk about supplementation. We can talk about meditation. We can talk about breath work. We can talk about yoga. We can talk. So there's a lot that goes on, behind the scenes. And yes, because they do Krav Maga and that discipline, those things are a lot easier all of a sudden to make a habitual.
Right. Yeah. I knew that was like my first question out of the gate when I first came to you, that I was like, I I learned very rapidly that I needed to build muscle. And I'm like, so how do I do that? He's like, well, I can also train you, personal training. And that's how that whole thing, fell into place. And then it takes off from there. And I mean, that I'm forever grateful for that. My first experience, which I wrote about in my book, is showing up to take a private lesson. Did privates for 6 to 9 months, something like that, and then August saying,
why did you choose to do privates?
Well, it's just really interesting that I had a stalking situation happen with me, and then I called, and Mel, your wife, called me back, and I was actually, because on your website you had women's self-defense,
right? Yeah.
But then COVID happened, and so the program was put on hold. And she just said to me, she's like, hey, if you've never done this before, why don't you try a private session first? And, what do you think about that? I'm like, yeah, I'll give that a try. And then it's been ongoing ever since. And then 6 to 9 months into it, you're like, you should come to a public class. I'm like, I don't really want to do that.
How was your first class?
It was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying, where I walked in, and it was, some of those folks aren't even there anymore. It was, 5 men over 6 feet. Some of them,
all sweaty, black shirts on, with weapons.
Yeah, because my first day was Weapons Wednesday. I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me! I have no idea what I'm doing. But everybody was so kind, and what a community. And for the first, I would say 6 months, I would pull into the parking lot and sit in the parking lot in my head going, why the fuck are you doing this? Are you you're paying to get the shit kicked out of you? And I would go home covered in bruises. And I remember one night I came home, we did some striking exercise. And I forgot the young gentleman's name who was in the military, who was there for a while, and then he left. Yes, and then he left because he got transferred, et cetera. Right. And we were doing, he was my partner, and oh my God, he could hit so hard, and when you're first starting out, you got no strength at all. I'm like, oh my God, what the hell am I doing? And I went
Everything's
home.
Kind of a shock. Too.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
and I went home, and I'm having dinner, and my arms are literally shaking like this. The nerves were just, and I didn't want my husband to see it, because he was very concerned that I was going to get really, really injured. He's like, we can't afford for you to get injured. This is just not a good plan. And my arms, so we were sitting down having dinner, and I would make sure that I was eating when he was looking in the other direction, because I didn't want him to see my arms just shaking like a leaf. But it was just, I don't know, there was this immediate love and kind of somewhat of an addiction, where I was
love-hate kind of relationship.
Yeah, it was a love-hate relationship. And then when the women's self-defense program came online, that's when Prajna came in, and that was just really cool to see that start to develop, which actually leads into our next question about women.
So you recommend Krav Maga for women. Why do you think it's so important for women?
For everybody, but yes, women.
Yeah.
Since we are a female empowerment podcast.
That's right.
Yeah, I just wanted to get that out there.
You got it. So going back to the efficiency aspects, the first thing and the most obvious thing is, because it's so efficient, therefore it's something that can be utilized by anybody, and it's effective against anyone, right? And that was the whole idea in the beginning. Meaning, if you're 90-year-old female, that's in good shape, by the way.
200-pound deadlifts.
Yeah, going up against, a 300-pound guy, are you going to be able to lift him and trip his leg and throw him on the ground and give him an arm bar and snap his arm? No, probably not. So therefore, that is definitely not Krav Maga. Now, we teach that kind of stuff, right? But it has to be effective for everybody, regardless of their age, regardless of their sex, regardless of their background. Doesn't matter. Size. Yeah, exactly. Doesn't matter. And that's kind of, something for a lot of people, is they before they come in, for women, for men, whomever, is they're afraid to do it because they have to do something first. They have to fix something first.
Yep.
They have to train harder first. They have to get in shape first.
Yep.
They have to readjust their budget first. So there's a lot of things. Kids is a big one too. If we've got kids, that stops us from going and doing it. But again, when we prioritize ourselves, everything in life benefits from it. And for women, like I said, a lot of times there's kids and family, and
even more things to protect.
Yeah, absolutely. Take care of, more things to take care of. And there's nothing wrong with nurturing and taking care of. Like that's beyond measure. That's important, right?
But there's also a piece of setting an example for
yes,
as well.
Absolutely. Set the example. Yeah, that's a big one. And again, just by improving yourself and your confidence, you're helping other people.
1,000%.
And that's the one thing that's so hard for just about everybody to remember, especially people of servitude.
Yeah.
I'm a person of service, right? But I can't just continue to exhaust myself by putting everything I have into the training I do.
Right.
If I do that, then eventually I'm going to burn out and I won't have anything left to give.
Yep.
So we have to be able to take that time out and create that time for ourselves, because it's not just for us, it's for everybody.
Yep.
And I know for women that's a big hurdle. It's a hard one to get over.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. But the other part too, my goal with Krav Maga, with that school, with that community, is to create a community where you are accepted, where you feel safe, and
you do an exceptional job of it.
And it's huge for me. I think that's the biggest priority. Not just for women, but for everybody. We go there.
Right.
We feel safe. We don't feel undermined at all, or ridiculed, or judged.
No. It's totally like your posse.
Yeah.
You walk in there, and
Right.
it's like, these peeps have got my back. Like if something, like even yesterday, just as a total sidebar, Amy, one of the other students, shout out Amy, woohoo! She reached out to me and she was just like, is everything okay? Because for me not to be in class, they're just sort of like, what the hell, is going on? And she knew that my father-in-law had passed and everything like that. But just to have that, like we all need that in our lives. And so when you walk into that situation, when you walk into a school where like you are learning how to fight, people have this perception in their mind of what, especially women, perception in their mind of what that environment is going to look like, and it's not. It's very accepting and welcoming, and actually like people want to see you win. They want to see you succeed.
A lot of what's portrayed too in regards to Krav Maga is you look on YouTube and it's this really violent stuff.
Right.
Sometimes they're in like all this gear and stabbing each other, and I get it. It's scary, but that's not really what it's about.
Right.
In the end, someday down the road, getting to that point where you train like that, sure, is a great thing, but it's about personal growth there. And my job as an instructor is to help everybody grow and improve and get stronger, and that's it. That's
awesome.
it. Yeah.
What is just capitalizing on that question that Prajna just gave you, what is like the average female that's walking in there? Because I think that there's also a perception that the average female that's walking in to learn Krav Maga is like a bodybuilder, or is super, in impeccable shape, that maybe has a martial arts background, and, et cetera, versus like, the average woman who's walking in, like, what is the profile of the woman who's walking into Krav, or has reached out and said, hey, I'm kind of interested in this?
Well, you have a few. We do have that certain type that comes in and they do it before anything happens in their life. They are athletic. They're aware that self-defense is important. Maybe they haven't experienced much trauma in their life, so hooray for them. That's great.
Yep.
There's also, of course, the the more, I think, common, which is the ones that, again, are reluctant to come in, fearful, right, of failure or of just it being uncomfortable. And that's everybody too. But they come in with something that happened in their past, right?
Yes.
Something traumatic.
Yep.
And that's their motivation a lot of times because they don't want it to happen again. Because when it happened, it was the scariest thing that ever happened in their entire life.
Absolutely.
It's a huge motivator.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that we want, to come in the most because they need the most help.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think about in talking about it's not just the physical aspects of it, but it's the self-confidence that is developed through if you're coming in. I was kind of the first. Like I have not had trauma, pretty athletic. Just want to avoid ever being in a situation that I can't handle kind of thing.
Right.
But I love how you're very big on don't put yourself in those positions, like try to avoid them. Like this is only if you are in these positions.
If you find yourself in this situation.
But where I really want, and this is really what I want to see women in this category do, the ones who are fearful, the ones who are maybe in an abusive relationship or whatnot, is building the self-confidence that can, lead to getting them out of that situation.
Absolutely.
Protecting them, but then also giving them that
Perception.
confidence, that perception that this is possible. And along with the mental strength that you're talking about, like all of those things, like women out there, that's what we need more women to do.
I like that the two of you are bringing up that word confidence because I think that a lot of women lack that. And there is a level of comfort that they have in the quote unquote role that they play. And what I found, with Krav and just seeing so many women come in and out of, the women's self-defense program specifically, is that they see more possibilities for themselves when that starts to take shape, and also like the sisterhood that gets established. And this isn't just to say that doesn't happen in the co-ed classes, because of course it does. I mean, there's so many great men that come to. I mean, all of them are great that come to the school.
If they're not, they don't stick around.
Exactly. If they're a jackass, they move on. Because as Chris knows, don't be a dick, right, Chris? And so, there you go. But I see them start to, expand their minds around like, wow, I can actually do this. And I can grow into something, a bigger version of myself. And they apply it to other
aspects of their life. Yeah. And, I brought up the word perception because a lot of times they're in a position where, they've gotten so used to being told that they're not valuable, that they're not worth, anything, and that they have a certain role and they have to have that certain role and nothing else.
Yep.
So unfortunately, I mean, that's a huge thing to get out of, to get over, to escape from, to carry and to change.
Yeah.
Because honestly, that environment, you can't exactly change the environment.
Right.
Right. You have to change yourself.
Right.
Therefore, change your perception.
Right.
And the only way you can do that is if you do something different
and
empowering too. Right. And if you go and you step your foot in that door and you do that more than once, it will happen. But that is the hardest part is stepping out of what is known into the unknown. Right. And having the courage to take that first step. And if you can accomplish that very first step, then chances are you're going to continue.
Yes.
And the hardest part, as I always say, is walking in the front door.
Oh.
I will take care of the rest. That's the other part of it.
Yeah.
Right? That's how it works.
Yep.
And if their perception changes, well, their surroundings change.
Yes.
And this is a spiritual thing too, really, right? We're talking about changing ourselves and therefore, again, our perception, our mindset, the things we think about, and then therefore again our environment changes. This
Yes,
is
it does.
manifestation, right? Same kind of thing. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's interesting because that's actually you slid right into the next question.
There you go.
Of course you did. So what are the core spiritual principles behind Krav Maga, and specifically Krav Maga experts as a school, and how do you integrate that into the classes, if at all? And I say, we've had the spiritual conversation 1,000 times.
Right.
Not how are you? I'm just going to leave it at that. What are the core spiritual principles, and how do they get integrated into this practice? Are they more self-developed and driven, or is it embedded in? I mean, I know what my experience is. I'm just saying for the audience.
Again, it's individual, right? I mean, it's not an Eastern philosophy or martial art,
right?
So we don't really have, our sections of the material where we do something like meditation or any kind of like spiritual focus, right? It's about personal growth, and again, when we change our perception and we start to invite those types of things into our lives more, but through the training, the self-confidence, right? The increase in self-confidence increases, just one's vitality and vibration in itself.
Yes.
So really, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is that there's a mental spiritual connection. So we're training the mind, right? And there's a lot of beliefs, a lot of belief systems out there that believe the mind, right, is the universe, that everything is mental, and in essence, that's very true, right? And again, so if we're training the mind, well, hand in hand, we're treating people, or training people spiritually too.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. I also love, I feel like Krav Maga is also a lot about, and this is probably all martial arts as well, but you take what is given. Like I love how you actually teach a lot of things like, if this person's going in this direction, then just let them go in that direction.
Yeah.
And I always think of be like water. You don't try to...
You don't try and stop them.
Right.
Tell
Stop
them,
'em.
no, that's wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the wrong way.
And I think that's a great philosophy that people can take from Krav too. And
and again, that's a lack of judgment where we're at. When I, throughout my life, I've got a tremendous amount of experience, and when I see somebody doing something that is not, say, the status quo, Krav Maga, right? I really don't think it's wrong when I see it. Do I think it can be improved? Yeah. You can always improve it.
Absolutely.
Right? But usually it's never wrong.
Right.
yeah.
We just need to change it a little bit. And that's way more acceptable to a student,
1,000%.
right, than saying that's wrong.
Right.
Which makes them feel stupid anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
And no, we have to change it completely.
Right.
It just doesn't make sense, really. It's not logical to do that. You're not helping the person grow based on their own, state of being.
Yeah.
Right.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right.
Last question pretty much is just where can people find you? Like how can they access the Krav Maga?
Well,
experts?
I mean, we got a phone number, a website.
Yeah,
we got a
tell us all the
location.
stuff. Where do we find?
So if you go to kravexperts.com, that's our website. So KRAV experts.com. And you can reach us by phone, text. That's 208-999-7137. And again, we're open door policies. So when you call us, when you contact us, either you're talking to me or you're talking to my wife, and that's about it.
Awesome.
So
What about social?
Yeah, we've got Facebook, we've got Instagram, so feel free to check us out on there too.
Krav Maga Experts Boise, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. For all of those, that's what it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And because there is a relationship with Krav Maga Experts in New York.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're part of that.
Awesome.
We are.
Awesome.
And then for women in particular, you've got the women's self-defense on Mondays and Wednesdays.
Yep, 5:30 to 6:30.
5:30 to 6:30.
Yep, man. And Krav Fit. A lot of fun.
Krav
Yeah.
Fit.
You know what? I want to emphasize that. So
Yeah.
Got it.
Krav Fit, if you want to get in incredible shape, the Krav Fit classes, which are Tuesdays and Thursdays from 6 to 6:40-ish.
Correct. Yeah,
It's a 40-minute class.
That feels like an hour and a half.
No, like literally, no, like
or like 5 minutes.
No, a week ago.
Depending on your condition.
A week ago, we were taking. There was a group of us taking the class, right? And I looked up at the clock and I said out loud, "I'm like, I cannot believe it's only been 13 minutes. Like, I am going to die, and it is awesome."
You guys are just so good at the sales pitch.
I know, it's terrible.
Well, so one thing, when we talked about, more than just I know it's a very physical aspect, but such a big part of Krav is learning how to breathe.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And I know that they talk about that in lots of martial arts too, but just that's the only one I've experienced is Krav. And so learning how to breathe properly.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's something that people struggle with normally.
Yeah.
Day to day too. I mean, we've practiced breath work in a lot of the classes. Just for your mental acuity, just for your the way you feel on a day to basis. We have to learn to breathe differently. In society, we're told to breathe through the chest.
Right. It's all chest breathing.
Well,
fight or flight.
As soon as we start doing that too, it builds the anxiety. So it tightens everything up, and then we start to breathe really shallow.
Yeah.
So like right now, I'm taking a deep breath and I'm not afraid to let my gut hang out. Right?
The Buddha belly. Yeah, hardly a Buddha belly, but
it's all about the expansion of the diaphragm and the stomach, and everything comes from the core. And Krav Maga is the same. Yep. If you want strong punches, you want to last longer, then it's all diaphragm, it's all core. Yeah.
What I also appreciate about the school, and this is for all of our listeners, is that there is not just the skills. It's not just the learning of the breath. There's also like the Krav Fit classes, the conditioning side of it, which is for everybody. I mean, I'm being over exaggerating because it's torture for me, but it's for everybody.
So
it is.
It's so needed, and anybody can do it. What I so appreciate about you and Nan Gomez, who is one of the female instructors. Shout out to Nan.
That. Yep.
Shout out to Nan. We love you, Nan.
We love you, Nan.
That both of you meet everybody where they are.
Every time.
Where they are.
Yeah.
And because I remember what it was like to be that terrified person.
Right.
I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to get the shit beat out of me. And how as soon as I walk through the door, you met me where I am. Nan continues to do that, and also like with injuries. People come in with injuries. How do you work around injuries? Because a lot of people put that. Everybody has got injuries, like whether it's trauma injuries, whether it's. I mean, you know the drill. Like my shoulder. It's an ongoing chronic thing. Your knee, all of it. Everybody has it, and yet we always find workarounds. And so using that as like, oh well, I can't do this because I have that. That's actually it's a bullshit thing.
It is
because there is always an option, and wherever you are, whether you are at the absolute baseline or whether you've had a couple of years experience, everybody there is to support one another and also meet you where you are.
Right. Yeah. And really the greatest enemy for somebody that walks in the doors themselves.
1,000%.
Because I can tell them, but there's certain people that will still feel like they have to rise to the occasion, which would be to compete with the other students. Right. Yeah. And they feel like as soon as, there's a lot of them, usually men, to be honest.
I'm being sarcastic.
But okay.
Yes.
We've all done it.
Yeah. And then that's the person, of course, their first class that is in a chair off in the distance, and I'm getting them, Gatorade or something like that, and then a lot of times they don't come back, just because they feel like they don't have permission to go at their own pace, which even though I give it to them, but it's really important so that you do come back, and every class is that way.
And that's not a you thing, that's a them thing, and so a lot of that is what I've learned over the past, now in my 4th year is that this is about me. This isn't, about the environment. And you're going to...
That's all it's about.
Absolutely. And how you also, both you and Nan, challenge folks to keep moving forward.
Right.
Which is...
despite failure.
Right.
Yeah,
it's
that's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, you know what? You're not going to do it perfect all the time or even some of the time. Like, it is what it is.
No matter how good you are.
Right.
And as I always say, you can't stop. You can't think about the failure.
Right.
you fix it next time.
Right.
'Cause I really don't care if you screw up.
Right.
I don't care if the technique's not right. All I care about is what lies ahead, which is you improving. So
Yes.
if the next time or 10 times later you got it right, that's all we need.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a metaphor for life.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, you're going to fall down 100 times and then
Get used to it.
Right. And it just depends on your resiliency and how you're going to get back up.
Yeah,
So-
and I think that Krav Maga really helps with the rest of your life for that
Oh
particular
my
reason.
God.
Yeah, it's a big one.
My life has transformed over the past 4 years
Yeah.
because of these skills. And I won't speak for you, but I have a feeling that it has
yeah.
for you.
Well,
too.
we're told not to fail,
Right.
that we can't fail.
Right.
Right. That's society right there.
Right.
And we have to give ourselves permission that it's okay to
Yeah.
continue to fail over and over again.
It's actually the biggest learning experience, which is awesome.
Yeah, I'm
So-
still doing it now.
Yep, absolutely. So, all right, I think it's time for the Oracle card. Yep. All right,
Oh,
so
right.
you can reach down on the toasted marshmallow floor and pick a
my
card
own?
of choice. Yes.
Alrighty. That one looks good. Right in the center.
There you go. TikTok.
TikTok. What are we talking
That's
about that?
interesting.
There
Ooh,
it is.
I'm excited to hear about this.
So this is from the Wisdom of the Oracle divination cards. Let's see, 30.
30.
Yep.
So this is the TikTok card here. Da-da-da. And why don't you take a look at that, August?
Yeah.
Hold it
You got it.
while she's reading it.
30, 30, 30. Okay. Essential meanings, timelessness, divine timing, immeasurable time.
Ooh.
The Oracle's message. When humans created time, everything changed and contracted. People have come to look at life in a linear way, imagining that the past is behind them and the future ahead of them. But what if that isn't true at all?
Oh my God, you
What
gotta
if
be kidding
everything,
me.
creativity, beauty, chaos, and order
Wow.
were happening now in a glorious timelessness? You have all the time in the world to co-create the life you desire, so release your agenda. Let go of your need to shape each moment to your expectations, knowing that what is yours will never be withheld from you. Miracles are here right now and always show up when you need them, right on time.
Wow.
Very cool.
That really speaks to the whole open system kind of thing.
The,
which I
the
really-
conversation.
Yeah, the conversation in general.
Yeah,
It was
it's great.
awesome.
It's great.
Oh my God, August, thank you so much for coming today.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Oh, good. I'm glad
do
you
it
had
again
fun.
sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll bring you back for sure.
Okay.
We absolutely bring you back. Folks, you got to check out Krav Maga Experts if you are here in Boise, Idaho. And there are tons of Krav schools around the country if you're listening from someplace else. But we are so happy to have had you here today. And thank
Yeah,
you for your wisdom.
What a blessing to have in our community.
I know,
It's-
like
yeah.
literally, like, and for the record, folks, before we tune out, like, you've no idea what a gem August is in this community, because the skills that he has, like, for it to be here in Boise, Idaho, like, you're kind of like a big city guy, like where, you know,
Came from there, yeah.
where that, you know, where you would see that. You
Right.
know, here, a very hidden gem. So make sure that if you're interested, check it out. Drop comments in our YouTube channel. And I guess that's it for
Yeah.
today. All right.
Cool.
Well, thank you, everybody, so much for listening. And Jai Bhagwan, may your soul be victorious.
Is life hard? Yeah, it's really fucking hard. And you can also have the life it is that you want. You just got to work for it.